There are horrible dangers that can await people deep in the mountains. So many stories were told about the horrible, unexpected events that happened there, far, far away from civilization and the comfort of home. Today, we are going to delve into one of the scariest stories about 9 experienced hikers who lost their lives in the northern Ural Mountains in 1959 in uncertain circumstances. Yes, it's about the Dyatlov Pass incident that still haunts the minds of hundreds of people all over the world. Today, we are going to try to find all the most plausible theories on how these poor hikers actually passed away. Sounds thrilling enough? Then stay tuned to learn the whole horrifying story. Welcome back to the Mystery 5 channel, where I follow down the rabbit hole to bring you the craziest stories and the theories all around the world. Well, first, let's go through the background of this hiking event and the details of what happened. A 20-year-old engineering student and a very experienced hiker, Igor Dyatlov, assembled a group of 8 other peers and fellow hikers for this notorious trip. Initially, the group consisted of 10 people, but a lucky fellow, Yuri Yudin, left the expedition early because of some leg injuries. So there were 2 women and 7 men who all had a lot of previous experiences in hiking and trekking. They got their approval from the Sverdlovsk City Committee of Physical Culture and Sport because they had enough training for such a time and health-consuming trip. So they were ready and prepared enough for all the dangers people could face deep in the snowy mountains. On 31st of January, the group finally arrived at the edge of a highland area and started to prepare for the climbing. The next day, the group started to slowly move through the pass. But the weather conditions got worse and worse near that area, and visibility started quickly decreasing because of the horrible snowstorms. Due to this, researchers say that the group actually lost their direction and deviated west toward the top of the peak called Holod Sakal. This title is a transliteration from the language of Mansi tribes living there, and it literally means dead mountain. After realizing their mistake, the group decided to set up a camp right on the slope of the mountain rather than moving downhill to a forested area that could have offered some shelter from the weather. That is the last thing that is known about their actions before the terrible day X. It is estimated that people of the group passed away during the February night from 1st to 2nd. However, the rescue operation was only demanded on February 20th. So the army and the police forces got involved, with planes and helicopters ordered to join the operation. After some time, when all of the group's bodies were discovered, an investigation by Soviet authorities determined that 6 of them had passed from hypothermia, while the other 3 had lost their lives due to physical trauma. 1 victim had major skull damage, and 2 had severe chest trauma. 4 of the bodies were found lying in running water in a creek, and 3 of these 4 had damaged soft tissue of the head and face. The authorities couldn't conclude a certain cause of death, so they explained it by some compelling natural force. 3 years ago, an avalanche was claimed to be an official cause of death for the Dyatlov group by the latest investigation. An American skeptic author also suggested that the avalanche theory is the most plausible. He thinks that the group woke up in a panic and cut their way out the tent either because an avalanche had covered the entrance to their tent or because they were scared that an avalanche was imminent. They were poorly clothed because they had been sleeping and ran to the safety of the nearby woods where trees would help slow oncoming snow. In the darkness of night, they got separated into some groups. One group made a fire, while the others tried to return to their tent to recover their clothing since the danger had passed. But it was too cold, and they all froze to death before they could locate their tent in the darkness. At some point, some of their clothes may have been recovered or swapped from the dead, but the group of 4 were caught in an avalanche and buried under 4 meters of snow. However, there is also plenty of contradictory evidence concerning this theory. The location of the incident did not have any obvious signs of an avalanche having taken place. Over 100 expeditions to the region had been held since the incident, and none of them ever reported that it was likely for an avalanche to happen there. An analysis of the terrain and the slope showed that even if there could have been a very specific avalanche that found its way into the area, its path would have gone past the tent. The footprint patterns showed that the people were walking at a normal pace without panic, leaving the tent. Another version is that a violent katabatic wind was a plausible explanation for the incident. Katabatic winds are somewhat rare events and can be extremely violent. Such phenomenon would have made it impossible to remain in the tent, and the most rational course of action would have been for the hikers to cover the tent with snow and seek shelter behind the tree line. On top of the tent, there was also a torch left turned on, possibly left there intentionally, so that the hikers could find their way back to the tent once the winds subsided. Another theory is that wind going around Hollock circle created a repeating pattern of swirling vortices which can produce infrasound capable of inducing panic attacks in humans. According to this theory, the infrasound generated by the wind as it passed over the top of Ural Mountain was responsible for causing physical discomfort and mental distress in the hikers. In one speculation, the campsite fell within the path of a Soviet parachute mine exercise. This theory alleged that the hikers, woken by loud explosions, fled the tent in a shoeless panic and found themselves unable to come back for supply. After some members froze to death attempting to endure the bombardment, others commandeered their clothing only to be fatally injured by subsequent parachute mine concussions. There are actually records of parachute mines being tested by the Soviet military in the area around that time. A similar theory alleges the testing of radiological weapons and is based partly on the discovery of radioactivity on some of the clothing, as well as the descriptions of the bodies by relatives as having orange skin and grey hair. However, Radioactive dispersal would have affected all, not just some, of the hikers and equipment, and the skin and hair discoloration can be explained by a natural process of mummification after 3 months of exposure to the cold and wind. So, do you find this unfortunate story scary? I'm curious what you guys have on your mind about these controversial theories. Thanks for watching. Leave your opinions in the comments below.